the future of migration?
Sure. I think, well, part of it is that the waiting lists have become very long, right? The wait time for some of the golden
Absolutely.
visas
Yeah.
has become unacceptable for a lot of them. There's work being done to rectify that in many countries, but in the meantime, you can get a D7 approved here in Portugal in a matter of a couple of weeks, whereas a golden visa, getting that approved right now, you tell me. I mean, it's a long time.
It's a long time.
Yeah, right now. So I think for sure that has obliged or obligated a lot of companies to put it on their shelf, right? And but I think that the general trend behind it is the discovery that you can work remotely and that you can be location independent. And that was, when I went to college, I dreamed of being location independent, right? And then I became location independent with IMI, and then a few years later, everybody's location independent. But the discovery of that is a revolutionizing force in this market.
Absolutely. And also sharing both my own story. Lived in the UK, natural from Brazil, lived in the UK for 20 years. And then, it's like moving to Portugal brought me back into, a world of no borders. I think it's fascinating. It's a lifestyle that I've always wanted. Okay, so Christian, now let's. I think we covered a lot, but I still want to think of more logistically into the future, like as in another generation, the next generation. Yeah. So, how do you think they will be looking to citizenship by investment and residency by investment? What's going to shift there?
I think that we will continue to see pressure on citizenship by investment programs, like political pressure. Maybe we'll overcome that. I hope for a ruling in the European Court of Justice in favor of Malta against the European Commission, because they have infringement procedures ongoing. If I were a gambling man, I would bet on Malta coming out victorious from that. But nonetheless, I think that we will continue to see that pressure. Also because people are now physically relocating, I think we will see a rise in interest and awareness of independent means visas, because they've existed for a while. It's just that people didn't know about them because people were only marketing the golden visas. But now they're really coming to the fore. They're growing up. People are becoming aware of them and using them to a greater and greater extent. I also think that citizenship by descent is it's a neglected segment of the market, because, I mean, most countries in Europe allow for some type of citizenship by descent, and a lot of them, up to the third and even past the third generation of descendants. So the implication of that is that, in the United States alone, we're talking like 40-50% of the population who are potentially eligible. Not all of them will be eligible, right? But depending on which European country their ancestors came from. But I think, conservatively estimated, at least 100 million Americans have some kind of claim to citizenship by descent. That's just, take your own country, Brazil, right? Or Argentina, right? Venezuela, Colombia, tons of Italians, Germans, Spanish, right? All of which are countries that offer citizenship by descent. Well, not so much in Germany. It's only second generation.
Yeah, but Italy for sure.
Italy for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's like 80 million. The Italian diaspora is like 80 million people.
Yeah.
And most of them, I mean, almost all of them are in the Western Hemisphere, right? Yeah. So we're talking about, all told, if you add that all up, we're talking about almost another Europe in terms of how many people could become citizens in EU countries by virtue of their lineage, right? And that's, I think, it's interesting for investment migration firms as well, even though it's not investment migration, strictly speaking, because maybe you can charge 10, 15, 20,000 on a case like this. It's relatively uncomplicated, and you have 100, 200, 300 million people who potentially could do it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a volume business, but if you get those procedures lined up, if you get your processes streamlined, that can be interesting. And I also think that as you have sort of an ethical responsibility as a service provider in investment migration. If somebody comes in, my colleague Rogelio Cáceres, he pointed out people come in and his name is an American comes in and his name is Matteo
Salviani.
Something like that, something super Italian, right? And he comes into the office and he says, "Oh yeah, you should buy the Italian investor visa." Like, no. First check if you have some Italian ancestry, right? Because then you can get it for free, basically, right? And you just charge him for the work. So as service providers, I think it's important to be kind of solution agnostic when it comes to how you help the client, not just push on in whatever program you're excited about today, but also think, are there maybe simpler, even cheaper solutions for this person that we can provide? And very often you'll have citizenship by descent as a possibility, especially if we're talking about clients from the Western Hemisphere. In the past, investment migration was all about clients from the Eastern Hemisphere. It was all about Middle Easterners, Russia, CIS, Asia, all over Asia, right? And there, nobody has European citizenship by descent anyway. So I understand why there was not this focus on that. And there wasn't a focus on independent means visas either, because those people were from high growth economies. So they wanted to stay in those countries, still, run their businesses, do their work, and have the option to go to Europe if they wanted, but they didn't really want to move. We're talking to the market in the Western Hemisphere, so North and South America. Those guys, they do have European ancestry a lot of the time. And now, increasingly, they're also willing to actually physically relocate.
Yeah. It's a very interesting perspective because the investment migration firms, they have the personnel, they have a brigade of lawyers working with them based in the company or sometimes collaborating with them. And those same lawyers that are specialized in investment migration are specialized in migration. So it's a natural shift for them to look into citizenship by descent. And I know I have lots of friends and family members that in Brazil, they had to apply for their Italian passport. And it is a hell of a complicated business because you need to track down the birth certificate, because it's about if I'm not wrong, I think it's the 4th generation in Italy. So you need to go into parishes in Italy to find out the birth certificates of your the 4th top ancestors. Don't know how you call that. Right. Yeah, but there's all this work could definitely be handled by those consultancy firms now. So yeah, it's a very good point, and
I think it's worth it for a lot of people. I mean, it depends on how much your own time is worth, of course.
Yeah.
But if it's a question of doing work that will maybe take, I don't know, several weeks, and you can get that done for 10, 15, 20,000, it's probably worth it, especially considering all the doors it'll unlock for you in Europe. But what you're referring to with the Italian consulates, we had some interesting cases in Brazil. They're from Brazil, actually, these cases.
Oh yeah, they took the consulates to court.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So it's citizenship by lawsuit, essentially. So
pretty much a new term coined by you, citizenship by lawsuit.
A new hashtag. Okay. Citizenship by lawsuit. So what happened was in the Italian Nationality Act, there is some kind of phrasing around the consulates having to provide an answer within a reasonable time frame. And a reasonable time frame they have defined as 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And so you had a lot of people in Brazil and Argentina, but especially in Brazil. I think the precedent was made in a Brazilian case. They took the Italian consulate of Sao Paulo to court in Rome and said, look, we've made all reasonable efforts to get an appointment. It's been more than 2 years. Your Nationality Act says it can't be more than 2 years. I want my citizenship. And the Italian court in Rome sided with the applicant and said, here's your citizenship by decree. Like, I, judge, order that this man be granted citizenship by descent in Italy. He's presented the documentation and made all reasonable efforts, but for bureaucratic reasons in Brazil, he hasn't been able to do it. So,
citizenship by lawsuit.
Yeah, it's a way to go.
Thank you, Christian. It was great to have you in our studios. I hope you enjoy Portugal.
Um prazer.
Um prazer. Great. So you're speaking Portuguese now. I hope you liked this episode. And last but not least, please hit like and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.